I would encourage people who are out there, looking for the next job or evaluating, what it is they like or don't like about their current job. It's, does your job invest in you, and do you feel supported in your development and in who you are at work? Because it makes a big difference if you come to work every day and know that you're supported.
Welcome to the Cultivating Leaders Podcast, where we get inside the minds of leaders to harvest great ideas and lessons that help you grow as a difference maker in food and agriculture. I'm your host and curiosity captain, Nicole Ursig. Today's episode leans into leadership that protects our land, values our people, and makes room for every voice in agriculture. Kirk Maag is a partner at Stoel Rives, a nationally recognized environmental and natural resources attorney. That is not easy to say. And a bridge builder in every sense of the word. From securing water rights and advising on endangered species issues to guiding producers, co-ops, and agribusiness through permitting, compliance, and sustainability regulations, Kirk has built a career working alongside farmers, ranchers, commodity groups, and rural leaders. As a leader who has had to navigate what it means to belong in agriculture, he is helping create a more inclusive, equitable landscape in an industry that hasn't always known what to do with difference. He stands at an intersection not many talk about publicly: tradition and change, personal identity, and professional purpose. Welcome to the pod, Kirk. I gave kind of a very brief overview of you, but what did I miss from your bio? Help us get to know you a bit better.
Yeah, I think the big thing, especially as relevant to this podcast, is I'm a farm kid. I grew up 15 miles from a town of 1,500 people on a family farm and feedlot. In my K through 8 school where I started my education, there were fewer than 100 students. There were 9 kids in my 8th grade class. And then went to the big high school 15 miles away, where my graduating class from high school was closer to 70 people.
Yep, like rural with a capital R, definitely, where
Yes,
you grew up
absolutely.
in Eastern Oregon.
Yeah, Eastern Oregon, even in the other time zone. That's the trivia fact that most people don't know. Far Eastern Oregon, Malheur County, part of the county is in the Mountain Time Zone.
Yes, it is middle of nowhere, but in a good way. It's beautiful. So Kirk, tell me, what did your career path look like? How did you get to become an environmental and natural resources lawyer, from starting as a farm kid to where you are today?
Yeah, I would say that one of the biggest influences in my life, and this is, I think, something that you and I share, Nicole, a connection to 4-H and FFA. I got involved in 4-H from a young age, taking steers to the county fair, and then got involved in FFA, and was involved in the livestock aspects, but probably dove deeper into the leadership aspects of that. So competed in public speaking, competed in parliamentary procedure, the full gamut of career development events and leadership development events that FFA has to offer. And that took me my senior year of high school to deciding to run for a state office, an Oregon FFA state office, and got elected. And in Oregon, we take a gap year. So the year between high school and college, I traveled around the state and really experienced the true diversity of Oregon agriculture, both in terms of the commodities that are grown, but also the people. That took me to, well, if we take one step back, when I was a senior in high school, getting ready to decide where to go to college, I was getting the heck out of Oregon. I was going to go to Colorado State. I was going to major in animal science and ag economics, and my path was going to look very different. During my state officer year, my teammates, 4 of whom were planning to attend Oregon State University, said, "Gosh, you got to check out Oregon State. Give it another chance." And so I sat in on a class taught by Dr. Fred Obermiller. We called him Dr. O. And he was an economist by training, but taught classes focused on kind of the intersection of law and policy, or environmental and natural resources law and policy. And I sat in on one of his classes. His students were absolutely hooked on the content, and the students were passionate about careers in environmental and natural resources law and policy. And I decided right then and there that I was going to pivot. Wasn't going to go to Colorado State, was instead going to apply for and enroll at Oregon State and major in environmental economics, policy, and management. And that really set me on the path to going to law school and pursuing a career working with agribusiness and other natural resource industries post law school.
Tell me a little bit about the work that you get to do today. What does it look like to be a farm kid, natural resources, environmental lawyer living in Portland? How do you connect the rural background and the urban lifestyle today?
Yeah, so I would say my clients are made up primarily of agribusiness, timber companies, water suppliers like irrigation districts, and some manufacturing clients. But 80+% of my work is working with clients in the natural resource industry. Again, mainly agribusiness and timber. So I'm working with those clients day in and day out. I would say the clients that I work with, I help them accomplish their objectives. But a lot of times, folks in natural resource industries, they don't necessarily want to have to work with a lawyer.
I don't know that anyone wants to have to work with a lawyer at any time.
Exactly right. But I think if they're going to work with a lawyer, they want to work with a lawyer who understands the industry. It's one thing to understand the law, but a lot of the challenges that I help my clients face, you can't just divide between what's the legal side of it and what's the practical side of it, or how does it impact the business on the ground. And so I think my clients appreciate that I come with a practical perspective. I come with on the ground experience, and I come with an understanding of how these things work in real life, so that my client doesn't have to pay me so that I can learn what it is they're doing. I know some of that from my background, and it just allows for a more authentic relationship where I think there's an opportunity, or there exists this kind of foundation of trust that comes from working with people with some shared experiences, shared backgrounds. And so I think it allows the relationship to kind of deepen easier, and it sets up a starting point for a very successful relationship. You referenced kind of the connection to urban living, and you're absolutely right. So I live and work in downtown Portland. For the last 13 years, I've lived within a 10-minute walk of the office in a downtown condo. So very, very different than the farm that I grew up on. I would say one of the things that I love most about it is not having to deal with traffic or a commute. I have a 10-minute walk to work, maybe 11 minutes if the crosswalk signals aren't timed just right.
That's a pretty nice commute.
It is.
Awesome. So Kirk, tell me, when did you really start to feel like, or you can tell me that you don't feel like this, but that environmental law, natural resources law was not just a career, but like a calling, like, hey, I'm meant to do this. And I think probably speaks to your ability to connect across differences, like farm kid to urban, and even natural resources and agriculture sometimes can be seen as adversaries.
Yeah, so I mentioned that sitting in on a class at Oregon State with Dr. O was what got me to Oregon State and what ultimately got me interested in a career in law and policy. And I'll expand a bit on that because I think that is where I kind of understood this to be more than just a career. Dr. O really understood that natural resource industries need people working in law and policy who understand the industries. And a lot of times, farmers and ranchers aren't like encouraging their kids to go out and be lawyers and lobbyists. Like those are the two dirty L words. Like that's not what we
Yes.
want our kids to be. We want our kids to be like farmers, ranchers, maybe a doctor, like that'd be nice. But I would say most farm families aren't like gung ho about, ooh, I'm going to send my kid off to be a lawyer or a lobbyist. But if kids with rural backgrounds, with roots in natural resource industries and rural communities, aren't going into law and policy, who is going to advocate for those industries? Who has the passion for those industries, the roots in those industries, who understand the challenges that those industries face? And so I kind of took it as kind of a calling to be one of those people that grew up on a farm and feedlot, that had generations of family connections to the ag industry, to say, I'm going to go work on behalf of natural resource industries and hopefully help make things a little bit easier for them.
I love that. So tell me, Kirk, did you always feel like you belonged in agriculture?
So yes, I think it's a yes, but
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in a small town where it's a very, very tight knit community. And if you're from there, people embrace you. Like you're one of the hometown kids, and people are there supporting you at sporting events, at FFA events, at the county fair. Like it's a very tight knit supporting community. And if you're from there, the community kind of wraps its arms around you. Um, it was also a community where I had lots of family, cousins, second cousins. I grew up one road away from Maag Road. My cousins lived on Maag Road, but I lived one road down from that. So, like, when that's the community that you grew up in, there is a feeling of belonging. I think the but part is, I don't know that I know that I didn't always feel like I would be able to show up bringing all my identities to the table and be able to be fully and authentically me. I mean, I knew that I was supported, loved in my family and community, but I wasn't sure that extended to every identity that I would bring to the table, and that I could be fully and authentically me. And that, I think, extends beyond just my kind of hometown and home community. I think I can expand that more broadly to the agriculture industry as a whole. I knew that I belonged in and would be welcomed in the ag industry because I always had been. I mean, that's who I am, who I was. But I wasn't always sure that I would get to bring my full authentic self to the table. And even when I was in law school in my mid-20s, I kind of thought that I had to choose. I could choose to pursue a career that I was passionate about and keep some of my identity private, or I could choose some other career path and be fully authentically me and bring all of my identities to the table. And I will say, when I got out of law school, I had kind of picked I'm going to pursue my career passion and not, and kind of put to the side and keep private part of who I am. Fortunately, I started working at my current law firm. So I've been at Stoel Rives for 15 years. Even before that, I was a summer intern. And a couple of years into working here, I kind of took the leap of faith and decided, I'm going to be able to be better at both my job and in all of my relationships if I can bring my full authentic self to the table. And it happened over a little bit of time, but pretty quickly. And, I'm so happy that I did that, because I've found that I can absolutely pursue the career that I'm passionate about and bring my full authentic self to the table.
So tell me, as you went on that journey, I think one of the things you highlighted is like you could be better at your job and have a better life when you like weren't separating the parts of Kirk instead of just being full your full self. Uh, Can you talk about a little bit more of what that journey was like, and then how it's led to some of the leadership experiences or leadership roles that you have in the industry today in your work with Cultivating Change?
Yeah, I think it's easier to build relationships with people when you're able to be authentically you and not kind of be guarded in how you're having conversations with people. And because I think one of the things that happens, like there are just certain things that come up in casual conversation, like, are you married? And, or, I'll use a very specific example. Even within the last year, I was at a large timber conference having a casual conversation with someone that I've interacted with in a professional setting quite a bit. And there was a lull in the conversation, and he turns to me and says, "So, Kirk, what does your wife do?" And I would say probably 10 years ago, my response would have just been, "Oh, I'm not married." And that's a fully honest and authentic answer. But it's kind of not the whole answer. And, and so today, like, I responded like, "Oh, I'm not married, and I'm also not straight." And just to be kind of transparent about like who I am. And I think that actually deepened my connection to this person, because like we're able to be, fully open and authentically ourselves. And the fact that I was willing to be transparent with him, I think was helpful. But I think early on, when I was kind of navigating this journey between how transparent to be, how open and authentic to be, I think there were times that conversations and relationship building was inhibited because I was careful when people would ask like, "Oh, what did you do last weekend?" It was like, "Oh, how do I frame what I did this past weekend in a way that doesn't give away like something that I don't want to share with other people?" And so I feel like just being less guarded leads to deeper, more authentic relationships.
Oh, 100% agree. I think across anything, right? I read something recently, even that when you're doing Zoom conversations like this, people who have a fake background versus like even just showing where you're at, like simple things of just being able to be like, "Yep, I have a duck decoy in my background," and or hot pink curtains. Like it shows who you are, and it creates opportunities to build connection. And yeah, I think so many people can relate to this, Kirk, of whether you're trying to navigate just even how to be professional or how to show up authentically. Anytime you are trying to be so guarded, it's harder to even communicate, and it's harder to build relationships and connections and even work with people sometimes, right? Like, yeah. So tell me about cultivating change and how you got involved within the organization, and for even those listeners, what it is.
Yeah. So the Cultivating Change Foundation is a national nonprofit that focuses on valuing and elevating LGBTQ plus individuals in food and agriculture industries. The organization started back in 2015, and it was an event before it was an organization. So the first event was the Cultivating Change Summit. It was a gathering of gay men with connections to the ag industry in Atlanta, Georgia, in August of 2015. And, it was probably a 3-day event. And at the end of it, there was kind of this question of, is this worth doing again? And the answer was a resounding yes, this needs to continue. And so some planning went into, well, what happens next? The first part of the what happens next was hearing the feedback from other components of the LGBTQ community that was like, "Hey, you had a conference for gay men involved in agriculture. how about you include the rest of us at the table next time? Maybe you could be a bit more inclusive. And so while the first Cultivating Change Summit was primarily, if not exclusively, for gay men, the second Cultivating Change Summit that happened in Sacramento in 2016 and 17, the invitation was open to kind of anyone in the LGBTQ plus community plus allies to come together and really focus on that mission to value and elevate LGBTQ plus folks in food and agriculture. And as part of this, okay, we're going to make this an annual event and create more programming around it, there was a recognition that there needed to be a formal organization or entity around that, and that's what led to the creation of the Cultivating Change Foundation, which is the nonprofit entity that now puts on the Cultivating Change Summit. So I was on the board of the Cultivating Change Foundation from kind of its inception through the end of December 2024, this past December. So spent nearly 10 years on the board, and I'm really proud of the growth of the organization and the work that was done to fulfill that mission. Just 3 weeks ago, we hosted the most recent Cultivating Change Summit here in Portland. 120 plus individuals came together to support the mission of the organization, and was fortunate. And again, this goes to the support that I've felt from the place that I work. We hosted the opening reception for the summit here at the law firm where I work, and we've got 30th floor views of all of downtown Portland and the mountains around it. And it was great to be able to kind of bring people to my home city and introduce them to it, and at the same time focus on the really important work of the Cultivating Change Foundation.
Yeah, you said something there, Kirk, that really struck with me, of the feeling of support that you have from the place that you work. Talk to me about how important that is. And as we think about emerging leaders and finding the right environment for themselves in their career, like how maybe you sound like you've been with Stoel Rives pretty much your entire career, right? But if you think about that feeling of support and belonging, how critical that is to the work that you do in natural resources and agriculture.
So Stoel Rives has been an incredibly supportive place to work. I was not out when I was a summer intern at Stoel Rives. I was not out when the first year or two that I was at the firm. But the firm is engaged in a lot of different community events. And I remember getting an internal email about this annual gala for Basic Rights Oregon. And Basic Rights Oregon is an organization that focuses on kind of advocating on behalf of the LGBTQ plus community here in Oregon. So there was this annual fundraiser gala, and at the firm, we sponsor lots of different nonprofits that my colleagues are on the boards of, but emails will go out and say, hey, we've got 10 tickets for this event. Who wants to go? And again, I was not out at the firm at the time, but kind of took this leap and requested 2 tickets to the Basic Rights Oregon Ignite Gala, and took a date to that event. And I remember that was really my kind of coming out at work, or at least the soft launch. And I remember distinctly my date got up to go to the bathroom about halfway through dinner, and the coworker sitting next to me turns and she's like, okay, we're dying to know, are you just here as an ally or is that your date? And it was so welcoming, and it really kind of paved the way for kind of coming out to others at work and recognizing that I had chosen a firm that was very, very open and accepting. And I guess even taking one step further back, I remember when I was kind of deciding what firm to work for, I remember Googling the different attorneys in the environmental and natural resources group. and found the bio of one of the attorneys in the group. And the bio indicated that she had been involved with LGBTQ plus organizations. And at that time, I still didn't know whether I would be someone who would be out at work, or out at all. I mean, I wasn't out to anyone at the time, but knowing that there was someone who worked at Stoel in the group that I wanted to work in, the Environmental and Natural Resources group, who was involved in the LGBTQ plus community and related organizations, that signaled to me that it was a place that was welcoming and belonging. So, I don't know that I thought that much about it at the time, but it was just one of those factors that weighed into, oh, this is a place where I could be out if I wanted to be. And so my experience just has continued to be one where all of these early signals that I had that Stoel Rives was a very welcoming and inclusive place has proven to be true, time and time again. And that included the first Cultivating Change Summit. Before it was even, when it was in its infancy, it was just let's try this thing one time. I emailed the person who was the head of the Environmental and Natural Resources group at the firm and said, hey, this event's happening. They're looking for sponsors. I think it'd be great if Stoel helped support. And Stoel was probably within the first 3 to 5 sponsors of the first Cultivating Change Summit, because the firm values inclusion and belonging and wants to support people at the firm. And I was probably I was still an associate. I wasn't a partner yet at the firm. So the practice group leader was investing in kind of a mid-level associate at the firm. And there have just been so many examples like that where the firm has made investments in me. And some of that's on the kind of inclusion and belonging side of things, but that's not the only place that the firm invests in me. I mean, the firm has sent me to trade association events from the time I had been at the firm for 3 months, and I went to a water resources trade association event. And lots of times, first year attorneys, they stick you in an office and say, bill hours, do work. But Stoel really supported me in my professional development as well. And so I would be remiss if I didn't say, the investments in me are not just in an inclusion and belonging in space, but in kind of every professional development space. And I would encourage people who are out there, looking for the next job or evaluating, what it is they like or don't like about their current job. It's, does your job invest in you, and do you feel supported in your development and in who you are at work? Because it makes a big difference if you come to work every day and know that you're supported.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Kirk, I'm curious, in the work that your personal journey, but in the work that you've done with Cultivating Change, what would your message be to the next generation of agricultural leaders, the people who will be making these decisions or who are leading teams, about how we can make agriculture better? And I'm just going to say better.
Yeah. So I'm going to start with, we hear over and over again that we need more people coming back to careers in agriculture, particularly young people. I mean, we've all seen the statistics about, especially on the production ag side, that the average age of the American farmer keeps going up, 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 and that's not sustainable. If we want ag to thrive into the future, we have to change that trajectory. We have to get people returning to the industry, and that production agriculture, into every other facet of agribusiness. The way we bring more people to the ag industry is we change the perception, and sometimes it's perception, and I think sometimes it's reality, but there is absolutely, at a minimum, a perception that the ag industry isn't always open to everyone. And I think that we will have more people opt into the ag industry. Kids that grew up in ag or through some experience in 4-H or FFA found this passion for ag. They want to do it, but might have this perception in their mind that agriculture is not for them, or a career in agriculture is not for them. And so whether this idea that the ag industry doesn't embrace difference is perception or reality, people are choosing careers other than ag because of the perception that the industry isn't for them. And so we need to double down on our commitment to changing that perception, because if we have people who are passionate, young people in particular, who are passionate about ag, we do not want them opting out because of a perception that they aren't welcome in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you think we can change that perception? You know, if you think about the people who are listening, there's leaders across food and agriculture that I think can do this in the environments that they are in on an individual basis, or even if you have ideas on more of a macro level.
Yeah, I certainly don't have any silver bullets, but I think that I think one way is engaging with organizations. It could be Manners, it could be the Cultivating Change Foundation. Engaging with organizations where young people earlier on in their careers, but who bring different identities to the table than are kind of the majority in the ag industry. If companies, leaders engage with those organizations, I think they will find tips, tricks, strategies that will help them build more inclusive organizations. I also think just building those relationships can be helpful. I think it's also, whether through those organizations or others, just being cognizant of how kind of the language that's used can signal an openness and welcoming to people who are different. And this isn't to be like the word police at all, but the idea that if your first question to, let's say you're, a leader at an ag company and you're at a job fair, or you're at a dinner talking to, college students that are considering what their next career is. If the question is, oh, do you have a girlfriend? That isn't, that might send some signal about, what the culture is like where you work. And I don't want people to think that, oh, if you say one wrong thing like that, that's the death knell to building a relationship with someone who is who brings a different identity to the table than you. But I think just being aware of how you approach people in conversation can signal an openness or willingness to include and bring in others who might bring different identities to the table.
Yeah, it's just how are you signaling more like warmth and openness, and that, hey, I'm curious about who you are as a person. Yeah. I'm curious, Kirk, what would you say to someone who is working in ag right now who's questioning if they belong?
I guess my experience continues to be a very positive one. When I first started coming out in the ag industry, I expected. I think I was still optimistic, but I expected there to be more uncomfortable conversations than there have been. I expected there to be more people who were not open to, embracing, accepting me for who I am. But I have been continually surprised and heartened by the fact that I have been able to bring my full authentic self to the table over and over again and be absolutely accepted. So, I mean, that includes bringing a date to a sponsors dinner at the Oregon FFA convention. I mean, that includes to being very out and open about who I am in every leadership position that I've ever held, regardless of whether that's, that organization is affiliated with or connected to LGBTQ plus issues. So I guess I would say the future is bright and we're moving generally in a positive direction. That's not always the case. I also appreciate that that my experience in Oregon is probably different than people's experiences elsewhere. So, I can't say that every interaction that everyone has is going to be as positive as the one I have had. But I do think that there are organizations out there like the Cultivating Change Foundation, like Manners, other organizations out there where people can find community that both embraces and celebrates their differences, but also brings an ag connection. So maybe in your hometown, there isn't that community of folks that share similar identities, but I think there are opportunities to find those communities and connections in a way that I think will help people feel more optimistic about the future.
What I love hearing you tell your story, Kirk, and this is an observation, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like part of your positive experience has been because you were looking for the positive pieces and the opportunities and the like, here is where I do belong, looking for things that allowed you to live into your full self. And as someone who, for a variety of reasons, like I've had experiences where I've sat at tables in agriculture that I felt like I did not belong, and people who have made me feel that way. But when I hear it from your story, thinking about looking at it with a positive lens versus what the potential downside could be, I think that puts the power in the control of the person who is maybe feeling that way to how you can shift and change and find where you do belong in ag.
Yeah, and I think the other thing for me is I don't think that every and I'm going to use LGBTQ plus because that's the perspective that I bring. But whether you're a person of color or a woman coming to the table
or a young person in a group
yeah.
of
So
senior people. Yeah.
I don't think that every person who brings a kind of minority perspective to the table needs to make it their mission to be the advocate for that group. But I've decided that for me, that's a place that I can make a difference. And I appreciate that I come from, whether you call it privilege or opportunity, whatever word you use, I grew up in ag. I grew up on a family farm. I grew up in a community where, like I mentioned earlier, the road down the street was named after my family. Deep connections in ag, formed really, really tight connections through my experiences with FFA and at Oregon State, and then started a career at Oregon's largest law firm doing work in the ag and timber space. I have the opportunity to share my voice and share my experience, and I'm going to do it in a transparent way, in a way that I bring all of myself to the table, because I think that for me, one way that I can make a difference is hopefully to show some other young person out there that a career in agriculture is absolutely an opportunity that's available for someone who is an LGBTQ plus person, because, I think whether it's in a career or just some sort of organization, seeing someone like you succeed is really important for a young person who is asking themselves the question, can I succeed here? And if there is someone like you who has made it, it's just one more data point that suggests that, yes, I could make it too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important. Kirk, if you are ready, we, I think, are going to move into a section we call rapid fire, which I am terrible at because I tend to ask follow-up questions, but we will try to get through this with short answers only. Okay, what gives you hope for the future of agriculture?
Young people. That's what gives me hope for the future of agriculture. I spend a lot of time working with nonprofit organizations that primarily focus on young people. And the reason that I do that is because every time I'm around young people with a passion for agriculture, I leave feeling more excited and optimistic about the future. Whether that's FFA or the Cultivating Change Foundation, young people have new ideas. They are excited about the future. And I know that if we continue to support the development of those young people and show them that ag is a place where they can absolutely have a fulfilling career, that our industry will be in great hands going forward.
What is one thing about being a lawyer that you did not expect?
How much time I spend in front of my computer responding to emails, like hundreds of emails a day. Yeah, people ask me like, oh, do you travel a lot for your job? I do go to conferences because I love spending time with my clients and learning about things that are affecting the ag and timber industries. But 99.5% of the work, the real work that I do, can be done sitting at my desk from my computer.
What's a hill you'll die on about leadership or agriculture?
I've kind of touched on this already, but I think the hill that I will die on is if we want more young people to be involved in the agriculture industry for their career, we have to make sure that every person who is passionate about agriculture feels welcome in the industry, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity or any other kind of minority status that they bring to the table. Let's make this a big tent where everyone feels welcome.
Okay. So the next thing we always ask our guests, Kirk, AFA loves hot takes. So unconventional, bold opinions, either about agriculture or leadership. And I am curious, what is an unconventional or bold opinion, a hot take that Kirk has about leadership or ag?
Yeah, so I don't know how much of a hot take this is, but I think our conversations on a national level or even a narrower level than that, things continue to get more tribal. It's one side versus the other. And I see that manifest itself a lot in urban versus rural. And I think that in the ag industry, we need to spend less time painting our kind of urban neighbors as the enemy and taking more time to invest in building bridges and building relationships. Most ag products, or at least food crops, end up getting consumed in urban areas. That's where the majority of the population is. And instead of kind of retreating to my side versus the other side, or, I just don't like going to the city. We need to be building more of those bridges and developing those relationships, because I think our urban neighbors will support ag more when they understand ag, and particularly the people in ag more. I mean, we've seen a lot in terms of the kind of local food movement, which I think is very good in certain respects for American agriculture. That isn't to say, and maybe another kind of component of this hot take is I hate it when one segment of the ag industry goes after another segment of the ag industry, that it has to be, local versus mass produced or conventional versus organic. Like, ag has enough challenges without infighting within the ag community.
Amen. Preach.
But back to this kind of urban rural building relationships piece. As people better understand where their food comes from, I think they will be more supportive of policies that benefit the ag industry, because there are a lot of misperceptions out there. And if we keep the walls up, if we keep this trench between urban and rural growing, we aren't going to have the support we need from the population centers when it comes to voting, electing people, developing policy that we need to support a thriving ag industry now and into the future.
Great hot take. If I had to sum it up, it's that we need urban America as much as they need us.
Absolutely.
And remembering that, so important. And I love the, we have enough problems to deal with without fighting each other.
Yes.
For sure. Well, Kirk, thank you so much for your time today. It's been wonderful to chat with you. AFA is all about building relationships, building connections, building bridges. Where can people connect with you?
People can find me on LinkedIn. Fortunately, my name is fairly unique. So if you Google me, you can find me. And people can always reach out via email. Kirk, Kirk, .maag, MAAG, @Stoel, STOEL.com.
Thank you so much, Kirk. Well, thank you for the time today and for sharing your story. It's been an enjoyable conversation for me and fun to catch up with you. And I appreciate, I know that I got something out of this, and I'm sure our listeners have as well. Thanks for listening to the Cultivating Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Agriculture Future of America. If you've been here before, you know we value feedback as a gift. Please leave us a review and let us know how we're doing.